It's finally time. I'm ready to give my thoughts on Ghost of Yōtei Legends. I held off on this review because I wanted to do it right. I've max level 2 characters, optimized multiple builds for both of them, and most importantly, completed the new raid that recently dropped. Without hitting the end game, I didn't think I'd be in a position to show you exactly what Sucker Punch was trying to achieve here. What I found was more of what I love from the campaign: silky smooth combat and a charm system that adds some interesting kinks to that combat loop. The classes play well off of each other, and Sucker Punch is already listening to the community, dropping a major patch balance a mere 3 weeks after launch, as well as a post-raid patch. However, even with those strengths, I still feel Yōtei is a very safe bet. It's a sequel that could have reimagined the formula while keeping it grounded in the excellent combat. But enough talk, let's jump into it. Here is AntiMetaDoom's review on Ghost of Yōtei Legends mode. As someone deep into the looter shooter genre, I had a pretty good idea of what the raid would be like. I just wasn't sure how Sucker Punch would translate that into Ghost of Yōtei. After clearing it, I'm satisfied, but I wouldn't say I'm blown away. The raid is split into 2 acts, the Dragon and Lord Saito, and both demand tight coordination, high-level builds, and game knowledge. I was lucky enough to finish both on day 1, and while I enjoyed the ride, there are clear areas where the experience could be sharpened. Let's start with the positives. I love that the raid acts as a genuine in-game litmus test for your strongest builds. If your class rank and equipment aren't maxed out, don't even bother attempting the raid. I always give studios props for centering their in-game content around their most dedicated players. This goes a long way in keeping the core player base engaged when new and tougher content drops. The teamwork required is also fantastic. Every encounter forces all 4 players into a specific role. For example, you might be the only one to reach the final platforming ledge, and the progression rests on you identifying the next mechanic. For day 1 raiders, especially, that sense of collective discovery is an enormous part of the fun factor. Then there are the bosses. These are easily the toughest encounters in the Legends mode. The Dragon sends a constant barrage of explosive AoE attacks, while Lord Saito is capable of wiping your team in under a minute. And these are not just gear checks, they're also skill checks. You're forced to master perfect parries, maintain composure under pressure, and coordinate ball stuns. They are mechanic heavy and require absolute teamwork, which is the soul of a great raid. However, without a doubt, the most annoying part of the raid after your initial run is the amount of platforming required to get back to the actual fighting. This fluff highlights my biggest issue with the raids: the lack of combat in their encounters. While the platforming is fine on your first playthrough, it gets old fast. These middle sections lack what makes Ghost of Yōtei great: the combat. Before I can put my S-tier build to the test, I'm stuck jumping on ledges for 20 minutes. I would have loved to see these encounters lean into that special combat feeling. Imagine 2 players racing through a platforming section while the other 2 face insurmountable combat odds to hold a gate, or just more consistent combat intertwined with the mechanics. I want to be doing what makes the game best: killing enemies with my OP build. Luckily, Sucker Punch listened. They've already patched in ways to skip straight to the boss fights. It's a fair trade. You get to the fun parts faster, but you miss out on the extra loot drops. But this leads me to my final gripe: the weak ass loot. The only true exclusive rewards are cosmetics. Sure, you get a higher chance at S-tier gear drops and class-specific charms, but there isn't a low drop rate legendary weapon or an altered perk epic weapon hidden in these raids, and that's a problem. In a mode like this, the loot is the definitive incentive. If the rewards don't change how I play, there's no real reason to run it over and over and over again. When players are actively choosing to skip the majority of your endgame content just to get it over with, there are fundamental issues with the loop. I've asked myself, am I being too harsh or viewing Yōtei through the wrong lens? Am I unfairly comparing this to a dedicated looter shooter? Maybe, but the gameplay pillars that keep those player bases around for years, that hunt for one game-changing piece of gear, are exactly what's missing here. Overall, I enjoyed the raid. It forces you to be great at the mechanics and rewards technical mastery. But like the rest of Yōtei Legends, I'm left satisfied for now, but still hungry for something more substantial. Let's talk about the mission structure. You've got story missions, incursion boss fights, and 4-player survival mode. Most of these runs clock in around 25 or 30 minutes, and for me, that's a sweet spot. It's long enough to really fulfill that combat itch, but it's also just short enough that you can get a few sessions in and be done. But if I'm being honest, the burnout happens fast. After a while, the loop starts to feel a bit too familiar. You can jump in, play through all 3 modes, and then you're kind of done. If you aren't a pure combat enthusiast, it can get boring fast. To really keep players engaged, Sucker Punch needs to spice things up. Add even more cursed cards to make the battles feel different every run, and more gameplay style altering charms. Anything to help it feel more alive in the end game. If you want people playing for longer sessions, you need that variety. Even with those gripes, I still feel like this is the best possible structure for this game because unlike the raid, the focus is exclusively on the combat, almost to a fault. Overall, I do think Sucker Punch succeeded at giving Yōtei a true endgame. You have the raid for more mechanic-heavy teamwork and the missions where you are able to test your combat skills over and over again. But there lies the conundrum Legends finds itself in. The combat is so damn good that you'll always want to play the game. But with nothing to play for, nothing to grind for, and no real room for build tinkering, it makes the game too easy to put down after you've experienced what it has to offer. The lack of variety in the loop really highlights the limitations in how you customize your playstyle, which leads me to my next topic, the classes and abilities. A part of me had hope. I really wanted Sucker Punch to build upon the single-player combat mechanics and introduce some fresh new ways to experience the game. Instead, they went the route Santa Monica did with God of War Ragnarok. Take pieces of equipment that used to have multiple perks, strip them down, and put those individual perks on separate pieces of equipment. This approach would work if more mechanics and layers of the combat were actually added to Legends, but they weren't. So we're left with a diluted loot pool of weapons and gear that box us into maybe 2 or 3 playstyles per class. Don't get me wrong, I feel like each class is unique and they play their part within the 4-man team. But when you really break down the possible builds, there just isn't much to choose from. More than likely, your class character is going to play very similar to the player standing next to you. In a game like this, there should be enough legendaries, equipment, stats, and charms to really differentiate yourself from other players. That type of build crafting is what keeps players invested long after release and gives them a reason to come back after an hiatus. For example, the Samurai realistically only has 3 builds unique to the class: stagger damage, melee damage, and spirit build. And most classes have a spirit build. If you do anything outside of those archetypes, you're basically playing against the passive abilities and what makes the samurai strong, and that's the case for all classes. I really hope that somewhere down the line, Sucker Punch does a few of these things. Add way more charms that directly change the class's playstyle. Add way more class passive abilities so we have more ways to build into a character. For our class perks, instead of making us pick one of 3 in a slot, let us choose any 4 regardless of the spot. For weapons, same thing. Unlock all the perks and just let us pick from 2 regardless of the category. That would allow for more build variation. Allow class passives to be mixed. What if I'm a samurai and I'm willing to give up my Adochi just to have some status effect skills like the mercenary? I needed a paragraph or 2 to talk about the epic weapon pool and how Sucker Punch can't get out of their own way. Epic weapons essentially have 3 variations, with the only real difference being the focused attack either extending or depleting. This is a huge misstep. This is where Sucker Punch needed to start making weapons feel unique and either enhance or alter the playstyle of the class. Imagine if some katanas came with faster or more powerful quick attacks, others with heavy attacks, some with different focused attacks, or some with stagger or melee damage, or even some with spirit effects. The point is, epic weapons and utilities should have more variety that expand on build crafting. Sucker Punch should really consider expanding the perk pool of epic weapons and make them more viable and distinct. While I know these are a pipe dream, any of these changes would be welcomed. However, I have to give Sucker Punch credit where it's due. They are moving fast with balancing. In a little over 3 weeks after release, they made sweeping changes to classes and abilities based on community feedback. It's refreshing, and it shows that at least for now, they are committed to observing the state of the game and implementing changes swiftly. One thing I respect about Sucker Punch is they respect my wallet as a gamer. Even though I hate the idea of cosmetics being one of the main driving forces for loot, I absolutely love that Legends is a free update for anyone who owns the game. Everything in it is obtainable without the need to purchase a battle pass or fumble through layers of microtransaction menus. For me, when a game company does things like this, they build social currency. That trust makes me way more inclined to spend money on their next effort, whether it's DLC or a full sequel. Vanilla Legends came stockpiled with literally everything they have to offer, free of charge. It's crazy when you say that out loud and feel gleeful about it, but that's just the nature of the gaming industry today. For that, Sucker Punch should be applauded. I also have to give them credit for making the actual grind pretty painless. You can jump into a single nightmare mission and walk away with enough currency to upgrade your gear. Once you've accumulated a decent stash of soul dust and fragments, re-rolling your perks isn't even that expensive. They clearly want you playing the game and testing gear and builds. But with all that said, I have to ask the hard question. Is the loot and gear variety lacking because Sucker Punch has no financial incentive to make more? It's a real possibility. When a developer isn't selling a premium battle pass or $20 weapon skins, the pressure to constantly churn out new diverse items isn't that high. We might be seeing the trade-off of a pure free model. We get a great experience for $0, but we also lose the deep horizontal progression that keeps a looter game alive for years after release. Since they went this route, I'm interested to see how support for the game looks going forward. How long will they update the game? How often will we get new items? Will the rapid fire buffing and nerfing of characters continue? These are questions I'll be looking to answer as the Yōtei Legends mode lives on. When thinking of Yōtei Legends, overall, it's hard not to like what's in front of me, but I also can't ignore the things I don't like. On the positive side, the combat is still some of the best around, and engaging with it alongside three other people is incredibly satisfying. Legends mode is the true endgame the single player mode desperately needed. A place to finally cut loose and test your mastery against waves of enemies and a mechanic heavy raid. The grind is refreshingly easy, and seeing all of this content drop for free without a single microtransaction or a battle pass is huge. Sucker Punch deserves a lot of praise for that. But the longevity is where the cracks start to show. If you aren't a pure combat enthusiast, the gameplay loop might get boring fast. My realest issue is the lack of build variety. Because we're missing a deeper pool of impactful charms, passives, and class abilities, you're boxed into the same 2 or 3 archetypes per class. Ultimately, this is a fantastic addition for fans of the Ghost world who just want more time in the universe. If you're here to soak up the atmosphere and get your Yōtei combat fix, you're going to have a great time. But once that initial high wears off, it might not scratch that long-term itch for a deep, rewarding grind. It's a polished, beautiful experience, but it lacks the horizontal depth that keeps you coming back for months on end. I give Ghost of Yōtei Legends mode a 7 out of 10.